birth. I only lived there for a year, Brattleboro, Vermont. One of these times I ought to go back. Apparently, we saw a thing on CBS Sunday Morning about 6 months ago. Tom Bodett, the voice of Motel 6, lives there, and then somebody else famous has an art place there. I guess it's getting better because, as was noted in the opening of my book, Leaving Cancer for the Circus, the University of Vermont coach, you can read it in the beginning of the book, in salty language, told me that I would never really need to go back to Brattleboro, Vermont, because the place sucks. So anyway, maybe I'll go back sometime. Well, coming up next, we've got our tips and notices and heads ups about things that we've been watching and enjoying or almost enjoying. And that comes your way next. Entertainment tonight, this afternoon, whenever you're listening to this podcast with Danny and Jane on Reconcilable Differences with us. Part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed. And if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
Enjoy all the excitement of football season at the 23rd Street Brewery. From the Jayhawks and college football to the NFL and even live-streamed Lawrence High and Free State football games, you can watch it all at the 23rd Street Brewery. Enjoy the games with your favorite menu item like the Bill Self Mac and Cheese, Naked Nachos, or the Haney Turkey Stack. And wash it all down with your favorite beer like a Wave the Wheat or Crimson Fog. 23rd Street Brewery on the corner of Clinton Parkway and Castled in Lawrence.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business on Kansas City's #1 rated podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Welcome back. And last time around on the Reconcilable Differences, we featured sort of the underlying backstory and interesting sidebars of one Buddy Ebsen. And a tremendous song and dance man in his day, and we talked about that, and you can listen to the last episode if you want to know more about the real talent of Jed Clampett, and not the one you saw in the Beverly Hillbillies. But another thing that probably a lot of people don't realize, although he did win an Academy Award for Yankee Doodle Dandy dancing, is Jimmy Cagney. And he was an absolutely, and to his later days, a fabulous dancer. Now he became better known as a gangster and shoving a grapefruit in Mae Clark's face and so on and so forth, and all kinds of great films like that. But we settled in for some interviews with him, some videos we were watching. It's a wonderful, I love watching tap dancing, and he was a wonderful firecracker of a small package of dancing.
Oh, my God. Yankee Doodle Dandy, where he won the Academy Award. I mean, he was prolific and so at ease with himself. And he came from absolute desperational, poor background and worked his way up and just had a knack for it. And people went, this guy can dance. And he never actually had an official dance lesson in his life. And he has a photographic memory, so he was able to memorize dance steps really fast.
They used to call him the man on the basement, the dancer on the basement. He used to dance on the little thing, the doors that close on a basement that are angled, and he used to dance on those, and that was how he became such a good dancer. And he also quit Hollywood fairly early in his life and only went back for one more big role in Ragtime in the 1980s, and really had retired, and he successfully sued Warner Brothers Studio one time, and so he had a really sort of contentious relationship with the film industry, but he did things.
Imagine he contentious, but they still liked him.
Yeah, well, he had a tremendous amount of talent, obviously, and won an Academy Award, and was a great gangster and a great song and dance man. So look up some YouTube videos. You'll have a wonderful time looking at those, because he's just a fabulous, fabulous tap dancer. We also are starting up a couple of series that we are going to dive into, and we'll see how much we dive into One, why don't we do that one first? It's called Louder Milk, and this was a streaming series that went from 2017 to 2021. I believe there ended up being 4 seasons of it, and it is about a former music writer and alcoholic who becomes a counselor, and it's a half-hour show. He's a counselor who is not, let's just say he uses tough love type of things to approach people with. He's acerbic. He says exactly what's on his mind to people, forthright, and it's funny. It's funny in a dark, black way. Peter Farrelly is part of the Farrelly brothers, who've done so many crazy films in the past, are part of producing this, and Ron Livingston, who was in Office Space, that's what he's best known for, but he plays Loudermilk. And we discovered this because when we went to dinner with my sister and brother-in-law, and they said that they had started watching the series and they liked it, and they said, you know, Danny, you really might like this. And I think they think that I remind them of Loudermilk, which isn't really that flattering to me. But anyway, this guy will say anything to anybody, and it's
acerbic wit
really funny.
Is definitely up your alley.
He's really funny, and the cast is funny. And we've watched about 3 of them. I want to watch more. What are you thinking?
The first 1.5 I was really in love with. The last one I'm not sure. Maybe I wasn't in the mood or something. It seemed it wasn't quite as funny. But his roommate's really funny. He's kind of a, what do you want to say?
His roommate is his sponsor.
His sponsor, who's fallen back off the wagon himself, and nobody knows.
Right. At this point, at the point we're at, nobody knows.
But he's just quite funny. Great timing.
Very funny, great cast. A lot of side. The comedian Brian Regan plays a character who's in the group, the counseling group, the AA group that he runs. So what my takeaway is that the poor guy, he just needs to have a drink, is really.
Exactly.
He is not happy.
No.
He is not a happy recovering alcoholic, that's for sure. But anyway, I think if you like black humor, you like dark humor, you like somebody who is snarky and but very funny, you know, so I would say that if you like Larry David, you might like this guy. That
exactly.
might be something that's sort of a comp for that. Last night we watched To Be or Not to Be, and we haven't actually quite finished it yet because the busy Jane was tired and we haven't seen the last scene, but I have it queued up to that, by the way, dear.
Good.
This is a remake of a 1940, it was made in 1983, and it's Mel Brooks and his lovely wife, Anne Bancroft, who never looked lovelier.
Bancroft, yes.
Bancroft, I just slurred it. I know her name. Anne Bancroft. I don't think she ever looked lovely. She looks lovely a lot, and you know, she's Mrs. Robinson and so on and so forth, but she looks absolutely stunning in this particular movie.
Yes.
Mel, you done good anyway.
Yeah.
But
funny is sexy.
Right. So this movie was made originally in 1942. It's an Ernst Lubitsch film, and he's known for the Lubitsch Touch, which is a light comedy fare, his light touch. But it's about a serious subject. It's about Nazi invasion of Poland. And that can be a little off-putting as part of it because in the end, of course, they make fun of the Nazis and play them as comic figures. But Mel Brooks is a completely arrogant and conceited actor, and he plays that. And they're part of a musical troupe, and he does the big speech to be or not to be a lot. And that's when Anne Bancroft meets another guy and is having a dalliance. It's funny. It came out to mixed reviews. Like Siskel and Ebert liked it. The New York Times liked it. But it's only like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it features some of the regular Mel Brooks absurdity. I liked it. It's not a howling, laughing movie. There are tender moments toward the end, and it's an interesting story. And you got to kind of weave really super serious stuff with Mel Brooks' craziness. And I think in general it works.
Well, and there's a very famous beginning scene, you didn't actually see in the beginning, duet where Brooks and Bancroft do something that they revived. They do the Polish version of Sweet Georgia Brown, and it's the best thing in the movie so far.
It's very funny. There's quite a few musical numbers. Mel is funny as being a sort of dim, and you know, he thinks he's much more talented than he actually really is. And there's a lot, and there's a tremendous cast. Charles Durning had a big role. He was nominated for an Academy Award, although Siskel and Ebert regarded it as the worst nomination of the year. He did not win. Christopher Lloyd's in it, Tim Matheson, Jose Ferrer, Jack Riley, who you may remember as Mr. Carlin on the old Bob Newhart, who's a favorite of mine, because he's kind of a sourpuss, too.
Yes.
So anyway, that's To Be or Not to Be. You can find it wherever you find your films, and we're going to be finishing that tonight, probably. One thing that I can definitely highly recommend, even though for me, this person's work isn't really my favorite, is a documentary, a very recent documentary, I think it's this year, maybe, or last year, of Blake Edwards. It's called Blake Edwards, A Love Story in 24 Frames, and it's about the husband of Julie Andrews for many years, over 40 years, who was the director of The Pink Panther. That's what he's best known for, but Breakfast at Tiffany's, Days of Wine and Roses, many other fine films. He's a very, very talented guy who, after Days of Wine and Roses, said, we just made this movie about this fall down drunk, and I'm drinking too much, and he quit. Well, he suffered. There's another person who, maybe needs a drink or two through the years.
Right.
But anyway, he has his depressive side. He has a wildly talented side. His wife is Julie Andrews is absolutely in love with him and finds him the most stunningly attractive man walking the earth. It's a very, very interesting thing. And if you like the Pink Panther movies and movies like that with the slapstick and everything, which I don't necessarily like those very much, the Pink Panther ones, but he also did 10, the movie with Bo Derek and Dudley Moore, and you love the Pink Panther movies, so you love you some Blake Edwards.
I love some of them, but I love, one of my favorite dry of all driest is his movie, The Party, with Peter Sellers. That, to me, is my own little Blazing Saddles. And they bring up that a lot. The most endearing thing, if you do nothing else, reel it to the end, Julie Andrews wrote a poem to her husband. Danny was crying. I'm just going to say. That is how wonderful that tribute was to her husband.
It's such a beautiful poem. I mean,
unbelievable.
And says all the things about Blake Edwards, that he has this dark side, he has a bad temper, he falls into depressive states, but he comes out of them and is still a loving father and husband, and it's really very, very well done. So that's American Masters. That just came out. It premiered on the 27th of August, as a matter of fact, so that's however you access PBS and those American Masters shows, which are always great, you can get yourself towards that one. And one more recommendation. We've only done one of these, and this is another new to this year. Story is called Monsieur Spade. And we have only watched one of these so far, and there are 6. It's a 6-part series. I don't know if they're going to do a second season. We don't know that yet. Of course, it's in its first year. This is really a wonderful film noir series of 6 shows based around the character of Sam Spade, who, of course, is the Maltese Falcon, and Humphrey Bogart most famously portrayed him. And he is played by Clive Owen in this, and he has retired, Sam Spade, in this fictionalized work from Scott Frank and Tom Fontana, who actually have done The Queen's Gambit and Oz in the past. They're the production team and the writing team and the directing team on this. And he retires, and it starts off quickly in 1955, but it's set in 1963, and he lives in France and is just trying to live out his life in a bit of solitude in southern France and enjoy life and whatever. But he's, of course, in the end, is going to be suckered into being a detective again. I think it's real. The first one was really great. Again, recommended by your sister and sister-in-law. And a little audacious in taking this conceit of moving Sam Spade into another time and place.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's confusing, but it's confusing in a brilliant way that you're like, you got to know. And you're just waiting to know and unveil the reality. It's like The Big Sleep in a way. Clive is really good. Really good.
He is good. I've read a lot of stuff about this in leading up to the podcast, and a lot of people, his career was sort of waylaid a bit by a movie made in late 2000s, 2008, 2009, that was a comedy action thing. People didn't like it. He actually was thought to be maybe an heir apparent to being a James Bond, but he didn't want to do it. And so this is kind of a good revival of his career. He's excellent in this. He fits the part. He's another person who he's been told that he's got emphysema, but he still smokes. And so he's trying to live life to the fullest, but it's kind of dark. It's kind of confusing, like many film noirs are. But it's fascinating, enjoyable, and I can highly recommend it. So